All right, today we're going to dive into one of the most powerful but also surprisingly simple ideas in all of finance, and that is the cash flow model. Seriously, it's like the secret language behind everything, from your paycheck all the way up to these huge multi-million-pound government deals. And you know what? By the end of this, you are going to be fluent.
So, to get us started, let's just kick things off with a question. What on earth could your salary, the money that hits your bank account every month, what could that possibly have in common with a massive government bond? I mean, they seem like they're from completely different universes, right?
Well, believe it or not, the answer is super simple. They are both just cash flows. That's it. And once you really get your head around that one single idea, I'm telling you, the entire world of finance just starts to click. It all makes so much more sense. It's really the key that unlocks the whole thing.
Okay, so let's get right into it. What exactly is a cash flow? It's not some super complicated idea, not at all. In fact, it's the absolute most basic building block that pretty much all of finance is built on.
So at its core, a cash flow, it's really just a term for tracking money as it moves. Super simple. Any money coming in, that's a positive cash flow. Your salary is the perfect example. And any money going out is a negative cash flow. Like paying your rent or grabbing that morning coffee. Seriously, that's the whole concept.
Now here's the really crucial part to get. Every single transaction is a two-way street. It has to be. So your salary, that's a positive cash flow for you, obviously. But for your employer, the one paying it, that's a negative cash flow for them. The money you spend at the grocery store, that's a negative for you, but it's a positive for the supermarket. See? Every single payment has two sides.
All right, let's start with the basics. We're going to look at the world of what you could call simple promises. Cash flows where you know exactly how much money is coming and you know exactly when it's coming. Total certainty. These are, by far, the simplest things to model in finance.
Okay, so let's start with the most basic structure you can possibly imagine, something called a zero-coupon bond. It's pretty much the simplest loan there is. An investor pays out a chunk of money today. Boom, that's their one negative cash flow. Then they just wait. And on a specific date, way out in the future, they get a single bigger payment back. And that's their one positive cash flow. One payment out, one payment in. Simple as that.
Okay, so now let's build on that idea. Let's look at a fixed interest security. This adds a cool new wrinkle, regular payments. So you still have that first negative cash flow when you buy the thing, right? And you still get that big payout at the very end. But now, in between, you get this steady stream of smaller positive cash flows. These are basically just interest payments, and in the bond world, we call them coupons. Okay, so everything we've talked about so far has been totally fixed, totally predictable. But let's be honest, finance is rarely that simple. So now we're going to leave that cozy world of certainty behind and introduce our first big complication. What happens when the amount of the cash flow isn't guaranteed? So where does this kind of uncertainty come from? Well, a huge one is inflation. Think about it. A standard fixed bond pays you the exact same amount of cash every single year. But if the prices of everything are going up, that fixed payment buys you less and less and less over time. Your spending power gets eaten away. And that's where an index-linked bond comes in. It's designed to solve this exact problem. Its payments actually go up with inflation, so your purchasing power is protected. But if you want to talk about uncertainty, then we've got to talk about equities, or, company shares. This takes it to a whole other level. See, when you own a share, you're actually a part owner of the company. That means you get a slice of the profits, which are paid out as dividends. The thing is, company profits are anything but guaranteed. They can go up, they can go down, they can fluctuate like crazy. So the cash flows you get from shares are uncertain in both how much they'll be and even when you'll get them.
Okay, I know this might all seem a little abstract, but I promise you, these models are literally all around us. So now let's bring it back home and see how these cash flow models show up in financial products you probably already have or will definitely come across in your day-to-day life.
Let's take a mortgage, for instance. That monthly payment you make, your big negative cash flow, it might stay exactly the same for years and years. But what that money is actually doing under the hood, well, that changes a lot. In the first few years, almost all of your payment is just going to pay off the interest. But as you get deeper into the loan, that balance slowly shifts, and more of your payment starts to actually chip away at the original amount you borrowed. It's a real journey.
And what about retirement? Well, this is where something called an annuity comes into play. You can think of it like a bond, but completely in reverse.
Instead of you paying a lump sum to get small payments and then your money back, with an annuity, you give your retirement savings one big negative cash flow to an insurance company, and in exchange, they promise to pay you a steady income, a positive cash flow, for the rest of your life. It's a way to turn your nest egg into a predictable paycheck. But there's a really key difference from a bond. You don't get that big lump sum back at the end.
All right, now we're heading into the really deep end, insurance. This is where these cash flow models have to deal with some of life's biggest and most profound uncertainties. Everything from a fender bender to our own mortality.
So to get how this works, let's just ask a really straightforward question. Who do you think pays more for a £50,000 life insurance policy, a 40-year-old or a 90-year-old?
Well, the answer, and this might surprise you, is it completely depends on what the policy is for. It all boils down to one simple rule. The price of insurance always follows the risk. A 40-year-old is very, very likely to survive the next 10 years, right? So a policy that pays out if they survive is going to be more expensive for them. But flip that around. A 90-year-old is statistically more likely to pass away. So for them, a policy that pays out if they die is going to be the more expensive one. The insurance company always charges more for the thing they think is most likely to actually happen.
And really, that's all these different insurance products are. They're just different cash flow models built for different possible outcomes in life. A pure endowment is a model for survival. A term assurance is a model for death within a certain time frame. An endowment assurance covers you for either one. And it's the exact same logic, the same principle, that's used to model the uncertain cash flows of a car accident or a sudden health problem.
So, there you have it. From the simplest possible loan all the way to the massive complexities of life insurance, you can see how everything can be understood as just a model of money moving over time. And that brings us to a final thought I want to leave you with. What's the most important cash flow in your own life? And if you really, really think about it, just how certain is it?